Oh, the Jesus way.
Oh, the Jesus way
Is the way of peace.
is the way of peace.
Oh, the Jesus way.
Oh, the Jesus way
Is the way of peace.
is the way of peace.
Oh, the Jesus way is the way of peace. When he is king, all wars will cease. May his peace begin with me.
We're now in our 6th year of producing this program, and we've been fortunate to have produced programs from the headwaters of the Amazon with a new community project to present the problems in that region. We have also ventured to Arctic Village, Alaska, and been hosted by Charlie and Marion Swaney to see how the native people of the Gwich'in tribe deal with the climate change and the threat of oil drilling in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. And for the past 5 years, we've met with 5 annual conference moderators and featured musicians and peacemakers of the Church of the Brethren. And today we have the privilege of meeting with David Sollenberger, who is the video person for the Church of the Brethren. David, welcome to Brethren Voices.
Nice to be here, thank you.
Now, you've been producing videos for the Church of the Brethren for many years. Can you tell us about how you got into that?
Well, I started doing, the day after graduating from Manchester College in Indiana, I started working at a radio station in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and did radio, television, radio news, and then moved into television news reporting. Wound up at doing the Harrisburg Bureau for KDKA in Pittsburgh and KYW in Philadelphia. And since I was in a bureau, I had a little more freedom to do some freelance things that than if I had been in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh. I was in the Harrisburg Bureau. So I started doing transferring some slide tapes. At the time, the Church of the Brethren was doing slide tapes to interpret the programs, and just started adding some of those slides with some videos, some interviews, and gradually started to do a project or two for the church. Covering news was fun, but I kept telling people I got tired of chasing criminals and politicians around, because often it was the same person. But so I wanted to just kind of do something more serving the church than I could by doing journalism. So and also you had to be objective all the time when you're, at least in those days, you had to be objective when you were doing TV news reporting. And I wanted to be able to be more of an advocate for what I thought was right. And so I just started doing a project here and there for the denomination, a project on Brethren Volunteer Service, a project on vital and revived congregations, and finally decided that that's something I wanted to do full time. And so I quit my TV job and started doing video productions for mostly for the Church of the Brethren, but also for some other nonprofit agencies and other church groups on a freelance basis.
So are you one of those rare persons that actually grew up in the Church of the Brethren?
Actually, yes, I am. My grandparents were Church of the Brethren. I'm sure before that yet. But no, I grew up at the Annville, Pennsylvania congregation, and then went to a Church of the Brethren college. And so, yeah, I've been around the Church of the Brethren theology and practice for all of my 50-some years.
Amazing but true, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we're going to be showing some of David's works as part of this program. And down through the years, we've been fortunate to see quite a few of those works. And one of the areas that you were involved in is Brethren Disaster Ministries. I remember videos you've done from the areas hit by Hurricane Katrina. And can you tell us about that?
There were during the years, disaster work has been a really unifying kind of ministry of the Church of the Brethren. It doesn't matter what side you're on theologically, or conservative or liberal or progressive. Everybody believes in disaster work, in disaster ministry. That's a pure Brethren practice and part of our what we do. And so so I've been covering disaster response work since the late 80s, actually. There was floods in the Midwest when Mississippi River flooded in around 1990 or 91. The disaster work was done there. There have been projects in Tennessee, Virginia, and the big one with the Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. But that's something that we've shown over the years, the way that the Brethren have responded to disasters, and that not only that, but the auctions that are held. There are auctions across the denomination that help raise money for disaster ministries. So I've chronicled a lot of the auctions and the other fundraising projects that have happened. So that disaster ministry is one of those good stories that the church needs to hear about. This is what St. Bernard Parish looks like, just east of the city of New Orleans. No, not right after Hurricane Katrina. This is what it looked like in April of 2007, 21 months after the hurricane.
It's been years in the U.S. history that we've seen this amount of need and this amount of loss of homes and lives from a natural disaster.
Normally in the U.S., cities and towns recover within months of a disaster. A sense of community returns. Businesses reopen. People return to normal. But for a huge part of the population in this area, normal is still a long way off. In January of 2007, Tim and other Church of the Brethren leaders visited some of the rebuilding projects of Brethren Disaster Ministries, the renamed arm of the Church of the Brethren General Board that connects church members who want to help with places where they can volunteer.
We're responding with well over 50 to 60 volunteers per week on a consistent basis. We anticipate a response in the Gulf Coast for years to come.
Thanks to the strong giving by Church of the Brethren members right after Hurricanes Katrina and Rita, the church was able to join others from across the country to help with some of the immediate needs in the Gulf Coast. But now Brethren Disaster Ministries has settled into what could be a long stay, as communities like Chalmette, Louisiana, are finding they need much more than rebuilt houses. So in addition to providing labor to rebuild homes, volunteers are finding they need to spend as much time listening and just being there.
The Brethren model healthy ways of living for the residents by being good, peaceful folks who care about the clients, and that makes a huge difference. These are folks who have been forgotten. Many of them were left on rooftops. They were prevented from coming to their houses for 17 days after the storm. They've been living in FEMA trailers for 19, 20 months now. So what we do, a lot of what we do, is just re-socialize them. And it's not proselytizing, it's not charity, it's not counseling. It's just talking to them like normal people.
We cannot depend upon road home, we cannot depend upon government or anything like this. We have to depend upon one another.
I've always had the philosophy of putting our faith into action and really expressing our faith through our works. And I believe that this is one way that people can really get involved and express their faith. And more often than not, actions speak much louder than words. Our volunteers really do have this heart, this giving heart, where they really show the love of Jesus.
They certainly want to work with their hands, but they also understand that they want to listen to the people's stories and they want to have that interaction and they want to be that presence for them. So it's hundreds of the brethren coming in on a weekly basis and just doing that, just being the presence of Christ to somebody.
Brethren Volunteer Service is another program that you have done much work for. And can you tell us about that? One of the first videos I ever did was in 1986, was to go to about 5 or 6 Brethren BVS projects and interview the volunteers and tell what had happened there, what they were doing, and explain the mission of Brethren Volunteer Service, why people give up a year or 2 of their lives to just do pure service for very little money. And then there were, I think since then, there have been 2 or 3 other BVS videos that have kind of explained that whole story. One of them having to do with the fact that this is the real world. People say to BVSers, well, when are you going to get back into the real world? And the point of that video was that, well, this is the real world. This is where ministry happens, and this is where people's needs are being met. And if you don't think this is the real world, you need to know that it is. That was the title of one of them. And then
maybe 5 years ago we did one in which we just covered more of the European projects. Christopher Brown went to Northern Ireland and France, I believe, and got some of the footage of some of the projects there. And I did a lot of the traveling around to San Antonio and Virginia and places like that, and covered the projects there. So it's BVS is another thing that the Brethren have felt good about and have had widespread support.
This is a world full of options. It's like a never-ending buffet line. While all that I'm really needing is living water and the bread of life. So as I'm walking through this life, making choices, there is one thing I must never forget. This land of opportunity has one God. If I seek Him first, He'll take care of the rest. I can live like a prisoner, not all that could be. I'm living in the land of opportunity, but a heart pure and simple is a heart that stays free. Living in the land of opportunity, I'm living in the land of opportunity. So many choices, so much good. Seek ye first the kingdom of God. Living in the land of opportunity. Seek ye first the kingdom of
Before we discuss your work at annual conference, that's got to be a big job. And we'd like to just ask you about what you strive for as far as making a good video.
Well, I used to say when video was just being introduced into the church back in the 80s and 90s, and it was still a novelty. I used to say that it's a good way of taking people to the projects, to be able to see what goes on, and bring what happens in the church to the people, to the viewer. And so I've striving a lot for visuals, for accompanying visuals, not just the sound bites, not just the interviews, but to be able to see what those people are talking about. And so I've tried as much as possible to minimize the talking heads and lips flapping, as we say, and try to emphasize more what it would be like if people were to go to where the project is happening or the story is happening. At an annual conference, yeah, you try to get a flavor of everything that happens at conference, and I've had nightmares where I've woken up and I'm dreaming that it's Friday or it's the end of the conference and I've missed everything. It's a constant struggle to try to make sure that you get what happens and know that it's going to happen before it happens, because you don't have a second chance. So if there's a demonstration or an event, or someone makes a really impassioned speech on the floor, or they introduce someone who's been to every conference for the past 200 years or something like that. Mm-hmm. You have to make sure that you're there, so you kind of just have to keep looking around and making sure that you don't miss something. And sometimes you do, but more than not, it's just a matter of letting people know what the conference was like, what issues were talked about, what some of the humor of the moderator or other things that have happened during the week.
My first contact with you was, I think, 2 years ago in Virginia during a concert with a pianist who's blind. Ken
Miedema. Yeah, that's the other thing that we do at conferences is to project what happens onto the big screens. That's a relatively recent phenomenon, to be able to have large screens at conference so the people in the back can see. I forget what was the first one where they did that, but the other role that I play at conference is being able to record and project with cameras onto the screens what goes on there. And with Ken Meadham, it's a joy because he's so good, and his music is so good. And I think we had a camera person on the stage behind the piano to get close-ups of hands and his face and stuff, and so you really could feel like you were right there at the concert.
The National Older Adult Conference is one that you've done a lot of work at. Now, I'm not old enough to go to that conference.
Probably not. Actually, you are. Most people are. Actually.
I know.
They keep lowering the eligibility age to 50 now.
Yeah, and most people tell me I am old enough. So, anyway, I've got to put that on my list.
For sure.
But you've done some nice video work, and we're going to be taking a look at that. But what?
Well, we do a little different thing at the National Older Adult Conference. Instead of a wrap-up, a summary of what happens, we do a 3-minute summary of that. But our role there is to provide what's called NOAC news. It's news announcements in a kind of an offbeat kind of way. And I collaborate with Larry Glick from Harrisburg, Virginia, and Christopher Brown from Wichita, Kansas. And the three of us kind of come up with an offbeat way of looking at events that are happening at the Older Adult Conference, and we've framed it in the context of NOAC news. And we spoof television commercials. There's a lot of slapstick things. We throw water on people. We drop watermelons off buildings. We just do kind of offbeat ways of telling people what's happening at the conference.
And now, almost live from Lake Junaluska, it's time for NOAC News, featuring your crack NOAC News team. The news starts now. Well, now. But now.
Hello, this is Larry Glick with
Christopher Brown
and with David Sollenberger. It's your NOAC News team. Welcome back to NOAC 2011, and we're just delighted to be here with you.
Even though we were disrespected last time, we thought we might not come back, but we decided that even if it's so easy a NOAC newsman can do it, we'll just do it.
We'll do it. So we're here for you, and we're going to start with a tour. You know, some people are new to NOAC, others maybe want to remember where things are. So we're going to give you a tour of the Lake Junaluska campus.
Let's go.
Let's go.
It's a nice evening we have going tonight, and I think it'll be a nice party. In fact, just look how nice it is. Look how beautiful the lake is.
Well, yeah, it does float.
Hi.
What just happened here? Look at this. Look at this watermelon. I can't believe that what happened? Who dropped that? This is a perfectly good watermelon. We were going to try not to ruin any more watermelons here at NOAC. I can't believe this.
One of the other things that you've been involved in is the creative vision statement for the rest of the decade for the Church of the Brethren.
Well, that's something that's not necessarily a video-related function, but as I've traveled around the denomination, different congregations, different events, different mission points around the world, it's helped me have an understanding of what the church is and what it ought to be about, and so therefore I was put on the vision committee that helped to write a vision statement for the church for the rest of the decade, and it'll be considered and hopefully adopted at the annual conference next year. But it was an interesting experience to try to craft a statement that incorporates all of what we want to be as a church, as a people of faith. And what we came up with was that through Scripture, Jesus calls us to live as courageous disciples by word and action, to surrender ourselves to God, to embrace one another, to express God's love for all creation. And every one of those words probably was debated for not hours, but those words were all chosen very intentionally. The phrase to surrender, what does that mean, to surrender ourselves to God? To express love for all creation, not just all that God created, including humanity, including people, and to live as courageous disciples. You've got to be bold, and we're calling the church to not hold back. When there's something that needs to be said, we hope we would have the courage to say it and to be courageous disciples. So that was and I put together a little kind of a visual manifestation of that report, of that vision statement. It's only about 3 minutes, and it just basically presents it in a kind of a visual way.
And is that the one that you've taped people all over the country? And
no, that was that was a different thing. That was that was a different project. What we did, and this had really nothing to do with the vision statement. The group Nickelback had a music video, a rock music video, which was called to the song "I Want to Be a Rock Star," and so they had people lip sync the lines to that song, famous people all over the country. And I thought, well, now that's kind of interesting. We ought to do a Brethren version of that. So Walt Wilczek, who's the campus pastor at Manchester, and I rewrote those lyrics, and it didn't flow right to say I want to be a Brethren. It didn't right. So I said, well, I want to see a new day was the way we phrased it.
I'm through with going to a church that doesn't walk the walk, that spends way more time on empty talk. This faith hasn't turned out quite the way I want it to be.
Tell me what you want.
I want some baptismal vows that really mean something, and discipleship like we've never ever seen, and some people who know what it means to be community.
Yeah, so what you need?
I need a church that's not all down and dreary, spending endless days just debating queries, when there's people out there everywhere who are really in need. I want a church that lays out a potluck meal, but remembers that it's God who's the real square deal. Gonna kneel right down and remember while we wash some feet.
So how you gonna do it?
I'm gonna take my church to a brand new day. I'd even sell the pews and change the name.
Cause we all just wanna live the Brethren dream, go and fix up houses while we eat ice cream. The life is simple if you've got enough nerve, and we all love Jesus cause that's who we serve, and we'll help out anyone in need cause we know it's right. We don't need no creed. Every child of God's gonna see a place when they find true peace, when they search for grace. Well, hey, hey, I wanna see a new day. Hey, hey, I wanna see a new day.
I need a church that lives God's earthly presence, that can take a good thing and swing for the fences, at least when it comes to God and what He wants from me.
I need a worship time full of pep in life, that isn't bound by a building with endless strife. Somewhere between rock and rap, and so will do it for me.
So how you gonna do it?
I'm gonna take my church to a brand new day. I'd even sell the pews and change the name.
Cause we all just wanna be a church one day that cares for all God's people, cause they're here to stay, where the grace comes easy and the love comes cheap. Cause we all need to listen when the people weep, and we'll hang out with the poor in spirit, looking for God's love as we live and hear it. Every sinner with their sorrows gonna wind up here. Everybody's gonna find they've got a friend who's near, and we'll hang out with the down and outers who are poor in spirit and are chronic doubters. We'll find them every day with a Craigslist ad and a Facebook page that we've always had.
Well, hey, hey, I wanna see a new day.
I need to plug into the real cool story of a man named Jesus and his blazing glory. We can be a movement, not an institution, and show God's love like a revolution. Cause we all just wanna be a church one day that cares for all God's people, cause they're here to stay, where the grace comes easy and the love comes cheap. Cause we all come to listen when the people weep, and we'll hang out with the poor in spirit, looking for God's love as we live and hear it. Every
sinner with the sorrows gonna wind up here. Everybody's gonna find they've got a friend who's near, and will hang out with the down and outers who are poor in spirit and are chronic doubters. We'll find them every day with the Craigslist ad and the Facebook page that we've always had. Well, hey, hey, I wanna see a new day. Hey, hey, I wanna see a new day.
David, you've been involved with the church for so many years, grew up in the Church of the Brethren. What do you most appreciate about the Church of the Brethren, and is there anything that gives you hope at this time?
Well, like most denominations, it's difficult to find unanimity on everything. There's a lot of different. We have this crazy idea that the Holy Spirit reveals truth to us gradually and over time, so that what we know at this point is not all that we will ever know. And so we're a denomination that believes that the new truth is being revealed to us through the years, and that gets a little messy because people are at different stages as truth is revealed to them, and so there is a lot of. There are issues in which we're not of one mind. Obviously, that came out at an annual conference last year, but there are some things that we can agree on, and I would, I guess, prefer to focus on the things that we do agree on, and there's a lot of things where I think that the Church of the Brethren is being faithful in terms of what Jesus' agenda was. Jesus had a wide agenda. It was not just one. It was just not just peace and justice. It was not just evangelism. It was a whole kind of way of being. And I think that the Church of the Brethren is fairly good at being true to in some way or another all of that agenda. I mean, there are people who do evangelism very well and articulate the faith very well. There are people who do peace and justice and are exactly what Jesus called us to be in terms of peacemakers. There are people who care for health issues in a way that are very inspirational. And it's I think if there's one thing that we can be humbly, I don't say proud, humbly grateful for, is the fact that we do what the tagline says, continuing the work of Jesus peacefully, simply together. And I think that there are a lot of examples where that's happening, and I wish sometimes we would focus more on that than on the issues that we're not of one mind about, because there are some issues we're never going to be of one mind.
Yeah, right.
And that's the way it's always been. I mean, there were issues back in 1708 and 1712 and that era where they were not all of one mind. And I'm not sure we have to be. I don't think we have to be. Unanimity does not mean is not what we should be striving for. It's unity around certain concepts of the faith. And I think that any denomination is going to say that they do that. But I think there are issues, disaster relief, speaking out for against war, speaking out for justice for the oppressed, speaking out that people need to understand who Jesus is and what he was here for. We do that well when that's what the focus is about.
Well, David Sollenberger, thanks so much for being with us on Brethren Voices.
Nice to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
Great privilege to have you with us.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining with us on Brethren Voices. And this is Ed Groff wishing you peace.